So I'm Rita, and I'm with Montgomery County, and I'll be doing a demonstration of ClickLearn and 365 Dynamics. We have been using it since about 2000. 2000 and, sorry. We've been using it for a few years now. I started in 2022, so I have kind of taken the lead to learn more about it and apply it to the various offices that we have, creating more documentation so that everybody can use it. So my background has just been in nonprofit and government documentation specialists, as well as database management for some smaller organizations. So this role really worked out nicely to jump into these ClickLearn and training documentations for. Okay, so what is ClickLearn? That's a really great question. So ClickLearn is a digital adoption tool. It's a system where you're able to create documentation based on the clicks you go through a website, through your Dynamics, through really anything that you would like to train somebody on. We'll do a demonstration of it, but it will really map your clicks, but it will also annotate everything for you. So it will provide where you clicked, what was entered, really anything that would be important for that documentation. And then it gives you the ability to edit it all, and it sets everything up into different learning formats. So they have 7 different learning formats, because as many of you know, users have very different capabilities within your systems, different learning styles. So one thing that really stood out to the county was that it gives you different options. So there are options to, it'll create a video for them to be shown how to do whatever is within the documentation. There is a try me option that allows the user to actually try what you're doing along with the documentation, as well as a test me option. And that will actually provide testing for the user to say, are you meeting these benchmarks within this documentation? And then you have the ability to download in multiple different formats, either a PowerPoint, a PDF, Word document, or one that we use often is actually in a link that can get published. We actually learned about this from another group member. Dan Madden had mentioned it in a meeting very similar to this, and Harry was very intrigued, looked into it, and really kind of was spearheading this tool to be used. So yeah, places that we're using ClickLearn is Dynamics. We have both. We're integrating it with our model-driven apps, but we also have a bunch of ClickLearn set out on our provider portal, much documentation on how to access the tools that we want them to use. And then we also have shared out via a number of links, Teams, it goes out via email. We have a number of different ways that it's being used right now. For demonstration purposes today, I have created some items that are separated from the projects that I have been working on, just due to the nature of some of them. But I have some fun things that we'll go through today, including creating a new one. So, okay, so we'll kind of get into the first little ClickLearn demo. So, ClickLearn is an application that you would access just from your desktop. As you can see, I have a number of projects going on. But for today's purpose, we're going to go into our demo for ClickLearn. And as you can see, I have a couple different recordings started. So these recordings are what I have started for just how you would begin some of your documentation. And you can build the documentation into smaller segments and build up from there. I just use some familiar tools that everybody has seen thus far. Moment to load. So as you can see, what I did for this one specifically is I just was on the user group website. So everybody's familiar with that. So from this recording, and we'll go in and create a recording next, you can see that there are different steps that are created. These are click steps as well as screenshots. As you go through, you are able to just see the steps that I had gone through and clicked. And as I mentioned, we'll go through creating one of these as well. But you have full editing capabilities within these training items. I can go in and say, I can edit these, changing text very similar to how that fit your style with your organization. It has, as you can see, it had the zoomed in screenshot. You're able to change that to make it the more wider screenshot versus, the more pointed screenshot. Additionally, you are able to annotate your screenshot. So I took a screenshot of this page. I wanted to make sure I highlighted the group information, the discussions, your members, events, and resources, and you're able to go in and put a description about all of these, which is really helpful if you're really trying to highlight specific areas. So you can see.
Look at us back before COVID. Look how many of us showed up in person. We look great, guys.
That's a good-looking group of people. That's all I got to
Really?
say.
Yeah, and as you save, each step along the way, you can fine-tune to what you're looking for and looking for your end users to highlight. So as you can see, it all fills in within here as you're editing. As you go through, if you notice, there's an extra click that I didn't need, you're able to easily get rid of it, which is helpful so that you can consolidate just exactly what you're looking for. Within here too, you can see that there's a video, assist, flow, and data editor. These are all really helpful because in addition to creating just the visual documentation in this area, it's then also creating a video of this. So it will read out all of the steps that are listed within. You can make edits here. There is an assist editor. It's taking a moment to load, so just bear with me here. Once this recording is hit, and what I'll be able to do is share this out as well. We'll create the one today that can be shared out to the group, but it'll create a video and it'll read through all of the information of where you click your annotations and all of the detailed level that everybody needs. There are some assist tools within, and this is really handy because it will take your documentation and follow along with what you were working on. So as you can see, there is a little, assist person that's pointing you directly to where you're supposed to go. So it really does help with different learning styles with your users. I know in our case, end users, everybody, we have a large user base, so everybody works just a little bit different. Okay, so I wanted to go over just showing you how to create one of these. This was kind of just like the overview of once you have one ready, things that you can do with it. Close out here, save our changes. We'll use those a little bit later. Okay. Hit new. So I'm going to create a new recording. So we'll have another one in our list here. And because we're on the topic of pizza, now I'm going to open that up. So as you can see, it's going to take over my screen and it is going to allow me to start recording. So I'll hit record next step and it will bring you to kind of where your screen is open. So as we can see, it's in presentation, but I want to go over to the internet. So I'm going to scroll down to my browser, and as you can see, a little green box pops up. So this is where we start actually clicking, and it's going to start following what I'm doing. Now I'm going to go over to pizza order. So what do we want to order? So we wanted to order just a cheese pizza with a couple toppings. As you can see, it's just mapping every step along the way here. And it's doing a recording. Two pizzas. That's delightful. So as you can see, it's taking a pause. It's taking a moment to say, was that the correct click? Does this click mean that you're at the end? I'm going to keep going here. So I'm going to record my next step. Scroll down.
Sounds like the people with mushrooms.
People want mushrooms. All right, let's see.
Now, is that taking the screenshots?
Yes,
That is neat.
it's taking the screenshot.
Did you have to click on the picture for it to get the screenshot, or is it just? Does it
It's
just
going to
pick
take it
up?
along the way. When I click, it's taking a screenshot along the way.
Got it. Okay.
So we're going to click some mushrooms. We're going to add to it. So now I'll do one additional screenshot that's really helpful. So that's like unrelated to any click. So I'm going to just hit print screen on my keyboard. And in a moment, you should see a little green box pop up. There we go. And it's going to take just a whole screenshot. So this is great for, I want everyone to see the whole page, but I don't really want them following on this step. So we'll just use this ClickLearn to continue. So I'm just going to double click. That tends to be my favorite way to get it to stop. And as you can see here on the pizza order, everything that we had done to date is here. So I'm going to end my recording, and it will bring me back to ClickLearn. Go right into our editor. So as you can see, this is right from where we began. So I was going right into my Chrome window. I have, got right to our order, picked some cheese pizza. But as you can see, of course, there were some steps that were not pertinent to the information, of course. So, step one was not, we didn't need that. So I can go ahead and just delete that. For this one, I can definitely clean up the annotation to say I really want just the link to. So right now it's cropping into like a smaller section that is the section I was hoping for. So I can. I put my mouse on to grab the wrong one.
I like that panel on the right too, the blur areas to redact sensitive data.
Yes, we use that one. So you can also expand out to the whole screen if you wanted. As you had mentioned, with the blurring out areas, this is a really handy one. We use this. You can edit this down to smaller. So say, if you had passwords that go in.
Yeah.
Takes a little moment. This is we had a few extra clicks in there as we saw. So you can pull those out very quickly, and it'll do a seamless transition throughout.
And in the future, let's say I've seen some ClickLearn like webinars, and I know they say that this is a great solution because as you grow and change and enhance your product and tweak things, all you have to do is come in on that one step and edit it instead of redoing all the videos.
I can show you that. So I can go in and say, okay, I also wanted to make sure I added pepperonis to the list, right? So I click my mushrooms. I can insert before or after. I can add a recorded step. And then I also have the ability to section these things out and add other content blocks, which is really great. So if I wanted to record a new step, it'll bring right back over it to this page. The ClickLearn screen will come up here in a second. Add my step. So we want to go in and order want to edit our pizza. Want some extra sauce. Update. There. So of course this looked a little out of order from our particular, our traditional order. So click out of here, go back into our editor. Come on. Sometimes it's a little picky, but we work with it. There we go.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Is that okay? So let's say you are placing this order with some Spanish-speaking coworkers. I know ClickLearn does multi-language stuff. Do you know how that would happen?
I know that
that
it
just
can
automatically
happen. I have not
happen?
done it,
Okay.
but I do believe that there are some language selections in the publication that you could pick to say, like, I would like X, Y, and Z language also within our publication.
Thank you.
So as we can see, we added our steps, we hit our edit, and then we can clean these up to say, edit as opposed to. And then you also have the ability to move these. So say that, you know, I realize I need to go edit my order, but it's actually further down. Yeah. Insert it. Here, so I can move everything around as needed, which is really helpful. You know, if you pick it up a day later, it's very easy to put things back into place. And as you can see, there's also sectioning that is available. And there's different levels. So there's two pieces to how to order pizza, how to start it, and then how to change your order. You can also have an additional section that is like a subsection, which is really handy.
Do you use this in Montgomery County for internal users or for people who are visiting your site?
Both right now. So we have our internal users that we're working towards getting that right now they're using mostly links that are available, but I'll kind of go over how we integrate that with Dynamics. And then we have some like portal users that'll go. They're just like one-time users, or you know, they're there for one reason only, so they have some separate materials that can send out. So the next piece of this is we'll save it, and the next piece is actually putting it into like a structure, and that can be published and changed. So to save this, sometimes depending on how many recordings you have or how often you save, it'll take just a minute to actually save. So now we're gonna go to like the structure of it, and this is kind of where you're actually building out the documentation with in each section that you want it to be in order, where you can change different things, you know, headings, dividers, stuff like that. So as you can see, my recordings are over here on the side. So we've got our platform user group, that's when we started, some demos, and then we have the one that we just created. So as you create more recordings, they will populate here with below. I'm going to click and just drag them over. Change different you know, icons to match kind of what you want, or you can apply different images that are, you know, organizational specific. now, as you can see from here on the side, it's marking which ones are on your structure already, and then which ones are over here. Going to display like how many steps they have to give a little bit of information. And you're able to preview what the end user would see and make adjustments from there as you're going through and seeing what a user would like to see. Cool. So as you can see, this is the ClickLearn that we just went through, we just made. And here on the side is what the end user would see and those different learning forms. So you've got, it'll show you the video of how to do it. It'll walk through it all. Try me. So this can do, so as I mentioned, you can go through the steps along with the ClickLearn so that you're doing it along with. Test me is very similar with, testing steps inside of it and then all your download options. So, Word, PDF, I tend to use, Word or PDF for proofreading purposes personally, but, however it goes out, each office has the ability to do whatever they prefer. Okay, any questions here? And then we'll kind of go into like the publishing and dynamic side of it. And there's also like a ton of customizations that you can do. You're able to add in your own like logos and colors and text and formats, which is really nice. So you can be in line with any marketing tools that you have. So the next piece of this is the actual like publishing of it. So I'm going to save my structure. I think it looks great. It's perfect. And it does give you kind of like a publishing guide, which is really helpful so that you know exactly where you want to publish it to begin with. So for today, we are going to just do the Content Cloud as well as inside a CRM. So we're going to put this right into Dynamics here.
Oh, they have native integration there to Business Central too.
Yes, yes.
I think that was Tatiana that speaks.
This is where you're able to, right now I have English selected, but if there are other languages that need to be published, I can get some more information or contact to discuss how to get those in, but this is where they would be located. It does have some tracking tools also, so you can pull some actual analytics from who has actually accessed your ClickLearn, what they used, how they used it, which is really handy. I'm gonna produce it. This can be published and reproduced as many times as you need, which is great. It updates the link there. It'll even prompt you to say, it looks like you need changes. Do you want to republish? Which is really helpful so that you're working out of the same project and not changing, not recreating the wheel every time. This is publishing. Does anyone have any questions so far?
Do you know this is mobile friendly?
Yes. Yeah.
Good question.
I have a question about the tracking capabilities. You said you could see who's used it and what they've used it for. When that gets published out, does that put a disclaimer on the site saying that it's going to be, your use is going to be tracked, or do you have to manually put that in?
That's a really great question. You may have to put that in yourself, just because it's just pulling analytics just from the site.
Some people are, paranoid about, oh, you're tracking everything I do kind of thing, and then they don't want to use it.
That's true.
Yeah.
So it's,
that is a great
question. Let them know. Right. If you let them know up front. Okay. All right. That was my question. Thanks.
Yeah. Alrighty, so this content that we just created is live, ready to go. And as you can see, there's a couple different links on here. So we're going to kind of go to the dynamics end of it. I'll come back to these links later, which are helpful. Okay, so over to dynamics. I just have like a demo, like a dev site set up. So actually go back over to my presentation really quick. In this presentation, I'll be able to I'll send over to Heidi. It has some links. So the solution is actually like a managed solution that gets put into Dynamics that ClickLearn has provided and set up. So I actually have that already set up. We can review it if everybody would like. But they did provide, which was really helpful, the exact steps to do this. And it included the actual download for the solution right there, which was helpful. So once that gets imported into Dynamics, there is a little help option that appears on your toolbar. And to begin with, it says configuration because it needs to be configured to a specific link. So we'll go in and do that. And here, as you can see, enter your published URL. So we'll go and write that. Copy this in to system. And as you can see, the thing that we just created pops right up. You are able to add multiple. So if there is a reason why you have multiple different, links and different ClickLearn structures and published ones, you are able to add multiples. There's some case scenarios where it's, user specific, or if it's, a department specific, you don't want the structure to be huge, you can do that, or you can put it all within one. So you're going to come to the preference there. Over back over. As we can see, you can add a configuration again, or now your ClickLearn tutorials are available. And it will bring you to the published ClickLearn that all matches up. Again, as I mentioned, you are able to add in your own custom logos and marketing tools within here as well, so that it doesn't just say ClickLearn. Kind of to that point where some people wonder where am I going? What site am I going to? It can match all of this stuff. And as you can also see, once you get into ClickLearn and start using it, you also get a little ClickLearn Assist tool. So we had kind of touched on that before. You get an assistant tool that will follow along with the steps that you're doing. Again, these steps were not exactly dynamic specific, but ones that we have worked on will actually go and say, you're going to accounts, you're going here, and it will map up the assistant to what was actually set up in ClickLearn, in Dynamics.
Can you set this up so it's like when someone comes here, I don't know, for like a couple days, and for like a week's time, if you're trying to train a bunch of users, can you set it up so it just like prompts them right away, or do they have to like prompt ClickLearn to turn it on?
Right now, they will have to prompt ClickLearn to turn it on.
Okay.
I have a contact with our customer service person within here. It should be a great one to ask. I had kind of reached out. Right now, we have it set up in our dev UAT environments for people to start testing. So we're kind of working out some of those specific items.
Yeah.
As well, I have linked is they had their an Aspire conference that I joined on, and they have another tool that they're working on as well that is kind of like a more user experience where it's kind of similar to that Copilot feel where it's like on the sidebar and it's walking through along the way. That's not available yet, so obviously I can't demo how we're using that. But in talking about some of these smaller, it would be easier if it just did that. It does sound like ClickLearn has some plans down the line. Yeah.
Okay.
That I think.
Yeah, we use Sales C, and we just published a new app or something like that within CRM. We definitely could benefit from, hey, for a week's or 2 weeks time, you're going to be kind of forced to go through this, but I could definitely sit.
Yeah.
This is interesting.
Yeah.
Now, as a reminder, we are not here promoting ClickLearn and saying you should all do ClickLearn. This is the member showcase. There are the third-party tools that provide similar things. There's actually only one I can think of off the top of mind, which is Visual SP, which is Asif Rahmani's. I've seen him demo that, and it's the panel on the right you were just talking about.
Yeah,
I just thought it would be
working on
interesting if
something like
ClickLearn
that,
and Visual SP like came together and used their powers for good. Does anyone on the call work with an organization who does this sort of thing too? Or is everyone kind of doing this on their own? I make my own ad hoc training material. I'd imagine that's what a lot of us are currently doing.
That's how I started.
Yeah, I can see how this is a massive time.
Yeah, especially with the screenshots. I mean, I know how, tedious it can be to take the screenshots and take them. This is a game changer with regards to those. Or sometimes people just skip the screenshots altogether because it is tedious. You see a lot of that.
Yeah. Can you share at all? Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
no.
No.
Can you share at all how you're using it? I like you said for UAT. That's brilliant, actually. Putting your user task scripts in UAT.
Yeah. So our ultimate goal is to have a master documentation that has office by office. You're still working out what everybody is doing sometimes. But it would be, my vision, I think, would be to have, a master documentation that's like, this is how this, our Health and Human Services uses Dynamics and it's available internally. But I would also like it to be within our production to say, oh, I have a question, it's probably right here. You can click through here, search through here as, stop number one for question. With regards to what, how do I create an invoice? How do I, reach a contact? How do I input an email? Down to those fine tune.
Yeah.
And then it would also be really great to have a new user application to say, let's get you trained on it. Because right now I think we have a lot of folks who are training each other. Yeah. I think it would be really cool to say, as part of an onboarding tool.
Like a separate model-driven app and just have ClickLearn running in that.
That's my dream goal. But we're still in the beginning process.
Yeah.
It took me time to even just learn how everyone is using the system.
And I realize you might not be able to answer these, but how about for the end users? So people who are accessing your portals, how is ClickLearn working?
Yeah, so right now they're receiving those as supporting materials for so we have a provider portal. So if a provider will go in and submit invoices for us, and so we've got the steps for them on how to do that. So in addition to accepting the invitation to get to the portal, we have them set up for that, and then we have for this office, this is what you're doing for this specific task. So we have it pretty fine-tuned down task by task because we find that that's best for providers.
How did you guys ultimately decide to use ClickLearn and not another platform that was out there?
Yeah. So when I was speaking with Harry about it, getting some more information, he had said that another user had mentioned that he mentioned using ClickLearn in these user groups. So that's how he kind of researched it and decided that would be best for us. I think before we were just using pen and paper, PDF. So I think the easeability with the tool, I think a big draw for us was having the different learning style options because we do have a large user base with varying degrees of comfort in any system. Right. So having the ability to, have set up something that can be in the user's comfort was probably
And preliminary, Joe, it was the cost. We looked at others, and it's just so much more affordable for the county. And it was one of those ones that actually, for the county, if you're familiar at all, it fell underneath the RFP level. So we didn't have to RFP it out. We were able to contact ClickLearn directly. And the other thing, too, is there are other licenses available. And just a little background, there's known as an author. So you can have how many authors do you have? In our case, we just use one. But you could actually publish this to a SharePoint site and have individuals go directly to that SharePoint site to see that tree model. Or you could use the ClickLearn portal which then goes into another type of licenses that how many users you allow to get to their portal. We've obviously used the SharePoint for some and then starting to embed more and more into the dynamics that Rita's demonstrating.
So, that's really good because we would probably have it. Anything that we generate or create would probably go on our internal SharePoint site. But even then, we'd have to be cognizant of how big these files become. So, Rita, can you speak of like what's the largest file you've ever generated size-wise? Are we talking like hundreds of megabytes, tens of megabytes, gigabytes of? Granted, SharePoint, will let you have as much space as you want to pay for, but I'm just curious, average file size that this creates.
So really anything that we've put onto like SharePoint and like Teams, things like that, have all been like the published link. So file size, I'm not even sure.
That's a good question. Well, does it store the screenshots and videos?
Yeah, everything's stored within ClickLearn. So
I would recommend instead of having one big file is to actually break it down. And they used to call it like a book, then a shelf,
Oh
then
yeah,
a chapter, and you know what I mean? It's kind of like, so you don't have just one big one out there, but you can build a tree structure. So if someone gets to your internal SharePoint, you would see the top level. And then say you're going into AP, you're clicking AP, and then it would be how to create a provider or how to create
Right.
you know what I mean? So all those files would be a file in itself. So as compared to try to jam everything into one.
Yeah, because I a bazillion percent agree, but I was just wondering average file size that you guys have been creating, or that, that's all. 10 meg, 100 meg, I big fan of the book approach where I don't care about chapters 1, 2, and 9. I care about the other ones.
We'd have to research that, Joe, to see how big the file.
Don't lose sleep over it, Harry and Reader Theory. This was just a general, did you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, I'm not going to lose any sleep, but
just in case you do, we can look it up.
like I said, this could actually go to your Office 365 and you can create stuff out in that area if you specifically have, reasons why you need a help desk or not help desk, but a ClickLearn file to say you have an expense sheet in Excel and you could somehow tie that into the Office 365 area. And I would say their support is quite helpful. And they do have a ongoing presentation, I think it's by Morton. And they are actually headquartered over in Denmark. So one of our biggest difficulty, just to let you know what difficulty we ran into, is to pay our invoice because our financial package would not let it go to Denmark because Denmark was on the target country, and it's like, so fortunately for us, they created a USA ACH location, so we were able to pay through that instead.
Well, now you fixed that for the rest of us. Thanks.
They actually fixed it for us, so it was beneficial both ways.
Yeah, and then we'll include the PowerPoint link, but I did include some resources. Their YouTube channel, has a wealth of information, even down to like 20 minutes, and get it. We'll teach you how to get it into Dynamics. And they have like a digital adoption podcast as well. That's really nice. Just to hear kind of like what's going on, different ways to use their tools, but then other adoption stuff. And then I did include the customer service manager with us. I actually reach out with her quarterly, I think, just to check in, make sure things are going the way we want. And then they do have like an Aspire conference that can be joined. They just had it recently, so they, have a bunch of different conferences and webinars. So if anyone's looking for, more information on it, those are great places to start. Get all these linked available.
Mike,
It's really cool.
yeah, my gut says that this is an area that's really ripe for Copilot and AI. So I think you're probably going to see a lot of change in this space. Everything that you were walking through really seems like AI could watch and do it for you.
That would be an interesting question to ask somebody at ClickLearn. I'm sure they have a really good answer.
Yeah.
You put so much preparation into this. Thank
I
you.
did.
That was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, so before you leave this slide, you slide.
Yeah, we go back.
Really quick, and this is a general question for everybody on this call. On slide 4, she has a D365 logo. See with that fancy D in the purple?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the new logo or is that the old logo?
Jamie?
That Microsoft is supposed to be using. I got into a heated discussion with coworkers about this. I said that's the new logo that we should be using. They're like, no, you have to use that other one that's an ugly letter D thing that looks like a bunch of triangles.
Really?
There's a link on Microsoft Learn. I will find them all for you.
And I'll be honest with you, I don't even know off the top of my head. That's the logo that I think we see most often. In fact, you know what? Let me take a look at it.
I feel like that's like the one mobile app that we still do.
Great. On Microsoft 365.
I'm not a branding guy, so I'm kind of like, whatever.
Yeah, no. Because I like that logo that's up on the screen right now. I just don't like that, I don't know, the abstract triangles with making up the letter D. That's just me.
I just
know it's not part of it.
I just hijacked a few new slides that had some new logos. Let me see what this looks like.
Downloading the zip file.
This will take 4 days.
All right. That's all I want to read. You can close it. Thanks.
Our whole building.
That's it. Confirmed.
That was the logo.
You've downloaded the zip file. You got it. Here, I'll even Joe and everyone.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Rita.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well done.
I liked you using our user group as a demo. That was nice.
I know, when I realized I couldn't use like my materials, I was like, all right, pivot. But again, it was easy to put together, which was really a testament to the product. So.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone on the call, Kelly Montgomery, for sharing your thoughts and feedback. It's really nice to hear what you think. Being not a salesperson for ClickLearn, to hear about the tool and how it works and challenges and benefits and all that jazz. Apart from the pricing and like the pickiness of getting the boxes there, is there anything else that's been challenging for you guys? Not the pricing, the payment.
I come from a background of like, creating it on my own. So I've really found the value in it. You look back on old projects, you're like, dang, it's so much better. But you also learn it, but I understand why it takes sometimes to click because it is trying to take a full screenshot of the whole thing and what I'm doing. So at least on the user side, they do come together really quickly. So if you're doing them in small sections and, depending on your work style, it's really easy to pick some up, start them, pick them up, put them down, and add to them and edit them. So that's been I haven't really seen any challenges with it other than some of those little nuancy things, but they're very easy to work with. Fantastic. It's a great review. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Hopefully ClickLearn's watching this recording and hit you up for some nice testimonials.
Oh, we can see it twice now.
2 different angles.
Yeah. Ooh.
Awesome. Any other questions? Jamie gets ready. About anything, life in general. Yeah. I see Shane has a question about his recent tax bill for the county.
Yeah, that was nice of you. Really set that up there, Heidi.
That was a multifaceted question.
I'm sure the Montgomery County folks are happy about that. Anything, and even I heard a few people mention Copilot. There's questions around Copilot. We'll address some of that today. Because I'll be honest with you, stuff about Fabric, I don't know that it's going to take very long. Kind of depends on how many questions people have. So
I have a question about Copilot, but it's tied into the D365 ad in Outlook. So it's like, can I get that annoying? Sell more with your AI-powered Copilot. Get Sales Copilot. Can I get that freaking message disabled somehow?
you know, it's funny. Somebody else mentioned that in Microsoft Whiteboard too. They're like, can we get rid of the mess? There's something that pops up for feedback. There's a little request for feedback in the new Whiteboard app, and that pops up pretty frequently. And I've had a couple customers say, can we just turn that off? I'm like, not that I'm aware of.
There is a way, Joe. I'm going to send you.
Is there? Yeah, because the thing is, we're rolling. Obviously, we're a little bit behind the times getting the Outlook add into our system. But I don't want people seeing this and they're like, oh, let me click on it. I'm like, oh, no, I don't want you to click on it.
Now, when you say the Outlook add-in, you mean Sales Copilot, not the Dynamics app for Outlook.
Well, that's what I was
Right,
going to
but-
ask. Do we mean
All right,
Different.
hold on one
school
second.
added?
Wait, hold on one sec. Let's do it this
Because
way.
with the Copilot for Sales, you're still limited just to 1 people for creating records. The leads is in preview, so you can almost make leads, but not a normal preview, a preview that you have to sell your soul for. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. So no, what I want is what I just sent in the picture in the chat. I want to get rid of that sell more, get Sales Copilot. I want that message to not appear.
And that is in your Dynamics app.
Yes.
Yeah,
I get
because that, yeah.
That's their upsell.
That's not going away because we want you to get Sales Copilot. Now, Sales Copilot does come with your Dynamics licensing, so you already have it.
I
But the question
understand.
is whether or not you want to turn it on. I get it.
It's really cool.
I'm not saying it's not, but I don't need people seeing it and clicking it and doing things, and we're not ready to support it in everything else.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's just me being, a control freak.
Well, no, I totally understand where you're coming from. I mean, from a support perspective, I don't need the extra calls, right?
Yeah. What about, don't you, and nobody wants to say, don't use them. Why are you showing it to me?
Yes.
Well, I'm not showing it to you.
I'll pass that on to Mr. Mike.
It's not that we're not going to use it. We're just not going to use it now.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a number of people on the team member license, which I don't think they get that, but they're getting prompted. So they ask about it. I mean, it's not in the rule.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, have you thought about starting to pilot it with a few people? And here's the reason I ask. I'm curious if there are certain things that hold you back from using it, other than the fact that we don't know if we're ready to support it yet, right? Totally get that.
Right. Well, here's the thing, Jamie, is that we don't even have the add-in rolled out to everybody in the organization yet who's got 365 or D365. So we want to get that up and running. We want to get people comfortable with that, and then introduce, I don't want to say added complexity because that's a bad term, but added features,
Well, it's change management. So I totally agree with you. It's another level. I got you.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything with M365 Copilot yet, like the general Copilot that people are starting to get used to, or is that not on the table yet?
That is falling more into the IT realm. I'm not in the IT realm, and they're evaluating it. They bought like a couple of licenses that they're playing around with it.
Okay.
Just to see what they're doing. Yeah.
Okay. I ask these questions just because I'm curious about how people view this, and especially with the majority of folks that are in these groups are like most of the customers that I meet with here at the NTC are enormous enterprise customers. And so there's a different perspective and a different outlook. And a lot of the folks that come to these meetings, some of the other groups that I meet with that are mid-sized businesses, it's a different perspective. It's a different question. So I ask that just to kind of help me understand the way people are thinking about this stuff in different kinds of organizations, because it's different.
Yeah, I mean, we've had people come up, and I think this might parrot something Shane was saying earlier, is, okay, we turn this on, whether it's AI or Copilot, and then it's going to start reading our data. And what does it do with our data? Does it stay within our tenant? Does it go outside of our tenant? I mean, it's like, and Microsoft says it stays in your tenant. Okay, fine, but does it really? I mean, it's like.
So let me touch on that if this is helpful. And I'll explain to you. I'll try to explain why it does stay in your tenant and why we couldn't do anything otherwise. So what we do from an Azure OpenAI perspective is very different than what OpenAI does. Okay, OpenAI, ChatGPT, the public side of things, that organization in and of itself, they are almost on a daily basis making updates to their model that they run behind ChatGPT. A lot of what they do when you're utilize, and I know they have a private feed-based service that supposedly is private and they're not using your data and so on and so forth. But the public side of what OpenAI does, they take the data that's coming through, and they actually have people reviewing the questions that are asked, the data that's coming through, and the responses that are being generated. And they're using a lot of that information to tweak the capabilities and processes within the model. In fact, this was publicized, probably about 6 months ago, maybe less. But they have, one of the things OpenAI did was employ a whole bunch of Nigerians to do exactly this work. And so you say, well, why did they pick Nigeria? Well, one, that part of the world, they happen to work relatively cheap, right? But two, they also happen to be very highly educated. And they're highly educated and they understand English. And so as a population of people, they're able to understand the questions and responses and all of that information, and then be able to bring that back to OpenAI to tweak the model. Now, I say that because in that public space with OpenAI, that's one of the ways that they are using information that people are passing through ChatGPT to help train their model. And it updates on almost a daily basis these days. That's not what we do, right? In Azure OpenAI, in the Microsoft space in general, we essentially have a copy of an OpenAI model. And we'll get different versions on a periodic basis. If you go into Azure and you deploy Azure OpenAI, you'll see the different models, different versions of models. You have control over what you want to deploy within your Azure tenant when you're provisioning Azure OpenAI services. And I say that from the perspective of we get essentially a copy of a version of the OpenAI model. That's what you deploy in your space. That's the same thing that we do with M365 Copilot. So M365 being a SaaS service that delivers all your Microsoft Office applications and all that good stuff, right? Within that SaaS world, we manage the copy of Azure OpenAI. And so we might deploy an updated version of the model periodically. We publicize that. We publicize what version of which model we've published there. Point just being that there's no way for us to train the model. There's no way for us to update the model, right? That's not what we do. That's what OpenAI does. That's what the AI companies that build these models, that's what they do. They train the model. That whole training piece requires just gobs and gobs of compute power to be able to train the model, even if you're just retraining the model, right? So that's not what we do. So the data and the way the Copilot process works is if I'm asked, so turn on Copilot within your M365 subscription. And what the Copilot service does behind the background is it says, okay, I'm going to scan all these documents that are in this particular M365 tenant, and I'm going to create a semantic index from that content. Now, keep in mind the semantic index is not a copy of content. The semantic index is a mapping of the way words are used within the patterns of text. And so what I mean by that is what the large language model does is exactly that. It's trained on gobs and gobs of English language text to understand the patterns in English language so that it can predict words. That's really what the model does. It predicts the next word. It does it over and over again to be able to create sentences and so on and so forth. The semantic index is essentially the same type of idea, but that's based on your business documents. So that semantic index is able to incorporate your own business terminology, product names, processes, those types of things within the context of your business. That semantic index for your organization, for your M365 subscription, allows Copilot to understand where certain words are used in conjunction with other words. In other words, those language patterns, right? So now I can start to say, based on the question that a user asks, I can vectorize that question and go back to the semantic index and say, give me similar vectors. And the semantic index can go back and say, okay, this list of documents contains information that would be relevant to that question.
Okay.
But then it's going to say, oh, by the way, there's 20 documents here, but Jamie only has access to 5 of them. So I'm going to take those 5 document chunks, and that's what I'm going to send to the language model as my box of facts. And I'm going to say, hey, language model, here's the question, and I only want you to use this box of facts to answer the question. Don't use information that you were trained with, because I don't care about your information. The language model is a language model, not a fact model, right? It's not a truth model. We shouldn't rely on, a lot of people say, oh, I can go to ChatGPT and ask it questions and it'll give me back an answer. That's true. Is it giving you back the right answer? Well, it depends on whether you gave it the right context, right? And so this whole process is predicated on the fact that the language model just predicts words. We need to give it the box of facts that we want it to use, and we need to ground it that way. We say, look, only use this information that I'm giving you to answer this question. Okay, and that's in general how the Copilot process works. So we can't retrain that model, and the data stays in your tenant because it's already protected with your Azure AD tenant, your M365 tenant.
Okay, I'm still listening, but my dog is ringing the bells to go outside, so I have to go let him out. So
That's all good, man. I think I'm done with that question. So I know I said a lot there. Hopefully that was helpful. If there's any other questions or whatever, go ahead.
For the data that's in the semantic index, is that just like documents on like OneDrive, the cloud version, nothing on your local intranet, I assume?
Yeah, that's correct. Nothing coming from on-prem. Yeah, like if you have on-prem SharePoint sites, Copilot's not picking that up. It's only the stuff that's within M365. I'll say your M365 tenant, if you will.
Thank you. Appreciate
So
it.
that's going to be all of your SharePoint Online, Teams, files, OneDrive, because that stuff all sits on top of SharePoint. Everything is SharePoint. So I don't know. Anything else on any other questions on that? It's a topic that these days I discuss on almost a daily basis because everybody is trying to understand what these things mean, right? And as soon as people start to talk about, oh, the semantic index, lots of people think, oh, they're taking my content, making it searchable in a database. No, that's not what the semantic index is. So there's this educational process for, I'll say, everyone else in the world who did not grow up as a data scientist, right? All the rest of us are trying to figure this stuff out on the fly. So anything else? Any other thoughts? Copilot related? If other questions come up, feel free to jump in. I'm going to share my screen here. At least I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. Talk a little bit about Fabric and Power Platform as a topic that Ms. Heidi asked me to talk about today. And I'll be totally honest with you, I am relatively new to the use of Fabric with Power Platform and what we're doing with Fabric in general from a data estate standpoint. And mostly that's because this stuff is all still in preview. And we really just got our hands on it, not too long ago. So I'll start to take you through a couple of things. If you have questions along the way or you want me to stop or whatever, just jump in. Don't feel like you're interrupting. And I kind of walk through this the way I think about it from a technology standpoint and why some of these things are important. So if we start out with just within Power Platform, and we go to this Azure Synapse link tab, right? And I'm assuming part of the group has probably seen this before. And this is where we always used to be able to create this link from, in general, this link from Dataverse to a data lake. We've had this service for quite a while. It used to be, now I forget the name of it. We called it export. It was a data export service or something like that you could turn on. And the nice thing about it is you can configure the tables. So if I jump in here, I can connect to a data lake, a storage account, and I can configure which table and relationships to tables and all that good stuff that I want to drive out there. So we updated that to this Azure Synapse link probably 2 years ago or so. And so that capability is still there in Power Platform. The way that we've been able to connect to your own Azure Data Lake or your own data storage account in Azure. That still exists. One of the drawbacks behind that in the past has been the fact that it's making a copy of the data that's coming out of Dataverse. And what we're doing with Fabric kind of changes that approach a little bit. I'll try to compare and contrast the two as we go along here. One of the things that you'll notice when you come into Azure Synapse Link, if I want to create a new link, it just takes me into the old configuration page where I'm going to connect to maybe a Synapse Analytics workspace or at least a Synapse data. The place where we can connect to Fabric, I have to go back over to Tables. And when I'm in my Tables area, under Analyze, this is all kind of weird, but it is in the documentation. This is where I can link to Microsoft Fabric. So if I want to connect to Microsoft Fabric, and it might tell me that, oh, you already did this. This is where it's going to pop open. I've already connected this Dataverse instance to a Fabric workspace. So that's why it's popping open now over in Fabric. But what I want to do is I'll come back over here.
So it's not a copy then?
It's not a copy, and I'll touch on that again in a minute. So going into Tables is the place where we capture this link to Microsoft Fabric. And I can link to Synapse here. I can do all this stuff. I only point that out because when you go to the Azure Synapse link on the left-hand side and you're in that blade, you won't see the link to Microsoft Fabric element, which I know it's a little odd. So what happens now is when we connect to Fabric, it's very much the same experience when I have, come on back. It's very much the same experience. This connection is actually going to a Synapse Data Lake. And you notice up here on the toolbar, it says go to Azure Data Lake, right? And I can configure the tables that I want. Excuse me. When I connect to Fabric, you'll notice the toolbar changes. View in Microsoft Fabric. But I can still configure which tables. Now, what happens is when I connect Dataverse to Fabric, by default, it takes everything. It takes all of my tables, and it connects them to Fabric. One of the reasons being, it's not actually creating a copy of the data out of Dataverse anymore. What we're actually doing on the Fabric side is creating shortcuts. So when we look at these, this list of tables on the left-hand side, you'll notice that there's kind of a new icon here with a little triangle on here. It's supposed to signify that this is a shortcut, not an actual table. Because here's what's happening under the covers. For a long time now, we've actually had, alongside your regular Dataverse database. So Dataverse is still Azure SQL under the covers, right? So alongside your Azure SQL database, we've had a lakehouse right alongside of it. We just never exposed it. And what that lakehouse is doing is it's actually capturing the Parquet files from your Dataverse data. So because that lakehouse is already there, when you want to, provision that premium capacity through Fabric, and then you connect Dataverse to Fabric, that's when we're actually exposing that lakehouse that lives under the covers. You can't access it directly, but once you connect to Fabric, that's what lights up that lakehouse. And that's what we're seeing here. Notice that up here in the right-hand corner, I have this little drop-down. And right now, I am pointed to I'll call it the lakehouse interface to my data. But when I connect to Fabric, it also provisions automatically a SQL endpoint for that data. So when I flip over to the SQL endpoint, this is more, something went wrong. When I flip over to the SQL endpoint, that's what I'm showing up here. I kind of pop this stuff open ahead of time because this is running slow today, and I don't know why. So now we're looking at the SQL endpoint. Again, it looks very much very similar, but you'll notice that my table icon right now, I'm really pointed to tables like I would be with SQL Server. And I can pop this open and create a new SQL query, for example. And it'll do that.
Security model?
Right now, in this case, yeah, the security from Dataverse is respected. So this is just standard SQL over top of that lakehouse, right? So this is SQL over top of those Delta Parquet files. Now, if I could get to these tabs, that's really what I would like to do. Let's go. That's okay.
And is this because Fabric speaks SQL and it gives a way to speak SQL to do the analysis from on the Dataverse data?
Yes and no. In my opinion, I think about it more as putting the SQL abstraction layer over top, the same way you were always able to do with a Synapse data lake. But in this case, Fabric is doing it for us.
So it's a SQL abstraction.
So it's
over top of
exactly.
Dataverse, which is stored on
Exactly.
SQL.
Exactly.
Okay.
And now everything wants to be on hold. So that's not fun. Let me see if I can kill this. Let's see if I can get us back here. Okay. So when we connect Dataverse to Fabric, not only is it it's exposing that lakehouse that already exists under the covers, but it's also creating the SQL endpoint, the SQL abstraction layer over top. So now we can start to create our own SQL queries, create our own views, all of that good stuff. If I wanted to look, okay, we'll start from here, I guess. So one of the things that I noticed people miss is down in the left corner, there's this little tool selector. So most of the time when I come into Fabric or into Power BI, right, I'm going to see the Power BI icon down in the lower corner. If I go into data engineering, this is where I can create my own lake houses. I can ingest data, set up all of that data streaming. I can start to create Spark notebooks or Python notebooks to ingest data, do analytics over these things. The reason I bring this up is because, excuse me, this is the place where you can start to create, this is more on the development side. We can start to create those insights, aggregations, the more of the AI side of things where I have data from multiple sources coming together in one place, meaning coming together in this lakehouse, and being able to drive that aggregated information, those insights that are going to be important for end users. I can get that stuff created here and start to surface that for my end users. So that part is done in this data engineering space. Okay. And the reason I bring that up, and I think it's important, is because when we connect Dataverse to Fabric, Dataverse is just another data source within our enterprise, right? What we're really trying to do with Fabric, and from a data estate perspective, is bring multiple data sources together in one place so that I can aggregate that data. And I might use machine learning models and all kinds of different things that are geared for different skill sets across the organization. But this is where I can start to bring all that stuff together within my data estate. The important thing then becomes, well, how do I surface that back to my end users, right? It's fine to be able to do all this stuff with the technology and create these insights and so on and so forth, but it doesn't mean anything if I don't get that in front of people, in front of end users. And so that's where we start to be able to use virtual tables within Dataverse to surface that information. So I don't know if folks on the call are familiar with virtual tables within Dataverse, within the dynamic space. We've had this concept of virtual tables for quite a while. In the past, I would say prior to about 2 years ago, what we used to do with virtual tables is use the concept to connect to external data and be able to surface that within Dynamics. And that was all well and good, but it was all always read-only data. About 2 years ago, we updated that whole virtual table infrastructure within Dataverse so that we can do not just retrieval, but we can do update, delete, we can do full CRUD operations against those external virtualized data sources. So when I connect to a virtual table, I can go back to Fabric and I can connect to the virtual tables that are exposed through our Fabric Lakehouse. And why is that important? Because when we start thinking about the way finance and operations, for example, ties in with my customer engagement capabilities, right? Finance and operations is not built on top of Dataverse. So what we do is we virtualize some of those tables within Dataverse. You may have heard of dual write capabilities. Right? So being able to virtualize some of that stuff within Dataverse allows me to connect to not only those dynamics tables that we've exposed through Fabric, but also our other tables from other data sources that we've exposed through Fabric. So if I do something like I'll grab our contact shortcut.
Does this replace dual write then?
Or
could it replace dual write?
It potentially, I think it really depends on the use case.
Yeah.
Right? It really depends on the use case. Because really, when we think about dual write, it's because I have, let's say, customer information, phone number, address, that kind of stuff, stored in both places for two different types of people, right? So that's a case where dual write really helps me keep that information synchronized and keep both sides of the fence performing.
That's true.
Right? So you're not wrong, just depending on the use case, I think.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen here is this is going to create a new table in Dataverse, but it's really going to be a virtual table. And I can come into the virtual table definition and make all kinds of updates here, right? So I might want to say, well, this is my Fabric contacts. Right, so I can give it a name. I can do all the stuff that I'm used to doing with tables in Dataverse. Okay, and then I'm not going to actually create this because it's going to take too long. But then when I create that virtual table, what happens is this is another example of a virtual table in Dataverse. If we look at the properties for a table definition, we'll see that this is a virtual table, and I can choose the data source. So I could configure virtual tables manually if I want to, point them to data sources. All of this list of data sources, these are all different data source providers that we've created. And by we, I mean the MTC organization in our tenant. So we have a whole bunch of different data source providers. The Fabric data provider is already baked into the platform. So when I do connect Dataverse to Fabric, I can virtualize some of those tables from Fabric, not just the Dataverse tables, but the other tables that I've surfaced in a Fabric workspace that I have access to, right? So this is where I start being able to aggregate data from, let's say, my customer information that's coming in from the web. I can aggregate with customer information coming from ERP, and maybe I include some information that's coming from my customer information in Dataverse as well. and I start to aggregate that into another table, another layout. Maybe I'm using some machine learning capabilities to predict, I don't know, things like customer churn or whatever, right? There's a lot more interesting things that we can do there besides customer churn. But the idea is being able to bring all that data together in Fabric and then be able to use that to generate these other insights. That's the kind of stuff that we start to surface through Fabric. Now, when I virtualize that table within Dataverse, the reason that is important is because I can create applications the same way I always create applications. So for my low-code developers, for my Dynamics administration folks that manage tables and forms and fields and all of that good stuff within Dataverse, the virtual tables look exactly the same. In this particular application, my data source is that Fabric content virtual table that we started to build earlier. I created it myself before today. But that's our content is coming from that virtual table. A couple interesting things here from a UI perspective. If we look at the view, for example, right? This is the same exact view designer that you typically see in Dataverse. The fact that the table is virtual doesn't matter. And that's one of the things that's really key for our low-code developers. Once I get connected to that virtual table that's being sourced out of Fabric, I can treat that table just like any other table in Dataverse in my applications. I can create filters on these views. I can do all kinds of good stuff.
And
Same
what about
thing with
the data storage? Does it grow my database size in Dataverse?
The virtual table, no, only in the sense of the metadata that's being stored.
And that's at the table level, not at the row level?
Correct. So I'm adding metadata just like I would if I was creating a new table, like a standard Dataverse table, right? But the business data, the actual rows of content, that's not being stored in Dataverse. Okay, we're using Fabric as the external data source that we're pointing to.
So in terms of like report performance, you'd want to keep the data close to Fabric so it can do the big data, whatever calculations it might need, and then just use this to view it.
In my perspective, yes. So if we take a look at what that looks like, what tab was I in? So if I have a data lake similar to this, I can still create a new report. So in this case, I already told this report, hey, pull in account, contact, and opportunity data, right? So on my way from the lake house creating a new report, I pointed it to these tables that I wanted to use, right? So that's how I got these tables in here. And then I could do things like, and I'm going to cheat here for a second. If I go to Copilot, and I just say, it's actually kind of cool what Power BI Copilot is doing, because even if I just say in this report, suggest content for this report, it's thinking about the three tables that I've added out of my my Fabric data set, because that's the other piece, and I think I forgot to mention this earlier. When you connect Dataverse to Fabric, not only does it automatically provision the SQL abstraction layer, but it also provisions that Power BI data set under the covers, right? So I can go directly from this Fabric view. If I jump over to my SQL Analytics endpoint, now I can go straight to a new report. And on my way to creating a new report, I can tell it what tables I want. and I'm going to end up in a scenario like this. And then if I turn on Copilot too, it's telling me things like, hey, here's an idea, opportunity pipeline analysis, or vendor management or performance, or customer segmentation. I don't even know what's going to be a good one. Let's try this, opportunity something, opportunity pipeline analysis. And so the nice thing about this is then incorporating Copilot, I can move very, very quickly. I do have to think a little bit about the tables that I need to be in the report. But from that standpoint, once I get those tables, I don't have to muck around with all the different visuals and all that kind of stuff. Copilot will start to generate those things for me, and then I can just start to make tweaks off of that.
This is awesome demo. I have a question. You're not going to like it. It's a hard question. How do you estimate how much this costs?
No. Yeah.
What licensing do I need? Do I need Fabric and Power BI and Dataverse and Azure Blob?
I will say this. With Fabric, you do have to have Power BI Premium.
Okay.
And you do have to have premium capacity. Okay. So that's the licensing side. There is not additional licensing on the Power Platform side.
Right.
Right. Because we always can create Power BI reports and we can surface them in apps and all that stuff. Right. But when I want to make this leap to really thinking more an enterprise data estate, so when we start talking about data lakes, if we start talking about something like Fabric and OneLake, what we're really starting to get into is saying, hey, we're trying to solve for this self-service reporting thing that people have been chasing for years, right? And one of the biggest problems that we've always had, and I get the IT folks coming with this, is, well, how do I make sure that my users only have access to the data that they should have access to, right?
Right.
And that's, again, where on the data estate side of things, especially with data lakes, get out of the data warehouse business and start thinking about data lakes where I don't have to care about ETL jobs anymore. Just stream all the data. We don't have to spend gobs of money on data cleansing and that kind of stuff, because a lot of times what happens, and we've found this even in the last 10 years with some of the analytics projects that I've worked on, there's value in what people think is noise in that data that they wanted to clean up. There's actually value in that, and we end up missing it. What the data lake technology is really good at is saying, hey, just stream all the data, because the capability now, the technology and the capacity gives us the ability to say, hey, I'm going to start to break this stuff out into what we call a medallion architecture. My raw data, that's going to be, then I'm going to start to split that out and say, okay, I can have a very simple stream from bronze that becomes my silver data. And I can have another one that has my gold data. So my gold data might be available to lots of people in the organization, but I've already removed PII information. So, for example, I run into this with healthcare organizations a lot. We don't want to expose patient information, but there's a lot of value in aggregating the business data, the healthcare data, not necessarily tying it to a specific patient, right? So when we start to anonymize those things, and those jobs are very, very easy to configure once all the data is already landed in the lake. Now I can start to say, okay, most people in the organization that need to do reporting, they're going to have access to gold. I have a few other people, maybe, I don't know, maybe accounting or something, right? They need to know, they need to be a little bit more patient identification. I'll give them access to silver. My IT folks, my R&D folks, my data scientist folks, they're pointed at bronze, because that's the raw data that's coming in, and they're looking at ways that we can drive value out of the raw data. So that's at a very high level conceptually. That's a lot of what we talk about from a data estate perspective. And when we start to take that stuff back to your original question was around licensing. Now we're talking about Fabric having premium capacity. That's the cost side of things. Comparing that back to, this is the whole, low code analogy that we talk about all the time. Comparing that back to, now I do have self-service reporting. The business can create these reports, especially using Power BI Copilot, right? I can very quickly create some of these reports. Are there ways? One of the big things that has become a topic in the last few months is the scenarios in every organization where someone is tasked with go grab data from here, go grab data from here, go grab data from here, put it in an Excel spreadsheet, do some massaging, do some things, and then go produce a PowerPoint for the executives in the organization. And how much time is wasted every month doing that. And this is an area that we're seeing the ability to start to eliminate that. So if I get that time back, what does that cost? It's usually not an intern doing that, right? It's usually somebody that's getting paid some pretty good money. So what's my cost that I can get back from that? And I don't know the answer, but those are some of the things that we're starting to think about, some of the things that we're starting to see.
That's super helpful.
So I said a lot there. Questions? Anybody? Yeah, so this made a decent report. I don't know. What if I do this? I'm going to paste my original question in here. Opportunities grouped by account, showing primary contact and email. And one of the things I thought was interesting when I did this yesterday, so this is kind of cool. Copilot came back and said, well, what are you really asking me to do? Do you want me to create a new page with this information? Do you want a summary? What are you trying to do? So I'll say, create a new page, please. Because I'm feeling like I'm in a nice mood today, so I'll say, please.
I always talk nice to Copilot. Nick doesn't. I always talk to him.
Totally
why are you so mean?
Just do it.
Yeah, no, it's a robot.
Yeah, right? Just do it.
To me, it's
I'm trying to get 3 more steps past this.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
I've worked on cars a lot, and usually the bolts get easier if you curse
Right on.
Heidi seems like the type of person that if she accidentally bumps a chair, she goes, "Oh, sorry," to the chair.
That's actually a good observation. I think you're right. I don't know, Heidi, you got to tell us, is he right?
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
We've known each other way too long.
So this is kind of cool. It produced a report and even threw a little map in here too, which was kind of nice. And that's a visual that I haven't played with much in Power BI. So it's kind of nice. It got me started. So that's kind of, I don't know, that's the bulk of what I had. Like I said, this probably isn't going to take very long from a demo perspective. I don't have a canned demo. All this stuff is still in preview. I think the important things here are being able to connect Dataverse to Fabric allows Dataverse to be part of that data estate conversation. And then when we start to aggregate data and create those insights from all of that information, all that data that's in Fabric, and we can virtualize that back to Power Platform, that allows our Power Platform developers to be able to use those virtual tables just like they use any other table in Dataverse. So that kind of completes the circle. And that's what I know so far.
Really cool. There's a lot I need to learn about Fabric, but I think it's a really cool tool.
I'll drop a few links in the chat to spots in the documentation that I thought were very helpful. But you can kind of use that as a jumping off point.
Does Microsoft have like a full end-to-end demo, like of the data coming in, going through some kind of ETL process, and then Fabric, like just a whole setup that we can just like look at like as a sample that you can pull apart and see how it all works?
So I'll say this: 1, no ETL. We want to get rid of that. 2, yes, there are tutorials for a number of these things, but the thing you have to keep in mind is there's sort of like, there's the Fabric, ingest data and do cool things with it side of the tutorial. And then there's the Power Platform, low code, how can I take advantage of the stuff that's in Fabric side of the tutorial, right? So you're kind of coming at it, in this group, we're kind of coming at it from both sides. So there's not just one. There's not just one, right?
Yeah.
Are there any articles that go over like when is it best to use this versus data?
Yeah.
Using Dataverse?
And that's one of the links that I'll post. I think has a pretty good comparison of the Dataverse Synapse link that we've had for a while versus the new Fabric link and what you get from it. One of the things that I found surprising, and I just learned this maybe about a month ago, is the fact that with Fabric, we're really not copying the data the way we used to. What we're really doing is just creating shortcuts to those Dataverse tables that were already there. So one would think that the changes to data in Dataverse would then be available much more quickly. Right now, the way we have this constructed in preview, that's not the case. So the old Dataverse Synapse link, those changes sync pretty quickly to your data link. It's like seconds. When I make changes in Dataverse, it gets over to my data lake pretty quickly. With Fabric, that's not the case. It's about an hour before it shows up in the like if I'm using the SQL abstraction layer to hit that data, it takes about an hour before that starts to show up. And that's just because in preview mode, we haven't put all of the horsepower behind it that it's ultimately going to need. But that's something that'll be changing. So some of the use cases when we think about this is like, if I'm looking at real-time data access that respects security roles and so on and so forth, probably not Fabric, right? I'm going to use the old Dataverse Synapse link. If from a reporting standpoint or even a custom app standpoint, I might want to use the use direct query. So my Power BI report, I might use direct query against the TDS endpoint on my Dataverse environment, right? If the requirement is really just standard Dataverse reporting, right, then in that case, our regular Power BI connector is fine, right? I don't even need to think about the Synapse link or the Fabric link, right? Our regular Power BI connector works because now it's been probably 2 years, that Power BI connector for Dataverse respects security roles also, right? So I'm in pretty good shape there. If I'm not really worried about the data availability and that latency is not an issue, then I might want to think a little bit more about Fabric, the ways that I can aggregate other data sources, do those types of things. So it's going to improve probably, as this transitions throughout this year. And I don't have a time frame when this leaves preview and goes GA, but by the time this goes GA, we'll have the horsepower behind it to make those updates fast.
You have a hand raised.
Oh, it's me. Yeah. My question was, you said you wanted to get away from ETL, but going back to your healthcare example that you use where you have to anonymize the data, if you're not doing ETL, how do you do that?
We can do that within just using simple Python scripts within Fabric.
But the source data would still have the unanonymized data?
Yeah, the source does, yeah. So what I'm really doing is I'm streaming all the raw data into the bronze portion of my lake house. And then from there, I can use Python scripts to create the silver and gold versions.
Okay, but okay, and I assume companies then are okay with storing that data in the bronze, like if they want to have that liability at all. Okay.
Yeah, because that's the piece that I'm locking down. The only people that have access to that are like my data scientist folks and those kind of people that are creating valuable insights out of creating those valuable insights out of that raw data, trying to get an understanding of where can we drive valuable analytics out of that raw data. When we start doing the ETL bit from source data into the data lake or like old school data warehouses, we end up losing all kinds of time because we're always going back and saying, oh, we don't have that field. There's always a question from an analytics perspective of, can I answer this business question? Do I have the data to answer this business question? And so we try it, we find out we don't have the right data, and now I have to go back and rework all the ETL to get additional data in. So what we're saying now is like, look, forget the ETL bit up front, just take all the data and let's see if we can create some valuable analytics. Let's see if we can answer some of these business problems. And then if we can, then we start to say, okay, let's productionize this by pushing the right data to a silver or to a gold area in my lake house.
Can you use like the data factory for that or something?
Yeah, you could use Data Factory, but typically I see people just using Python notebooks to do that work because it's so fast. I mean, you're actually operating and you're using the compute power that's part of your Fabric infrastructure.
All right. I guess I'd be interested in tutorials around that just because I want to understand that.
Maybe when Jamie's bored, Green Hands can show up and he can just dump it all up.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you. What I typically do at that point is grab my colleague Dave Wenzel, who's our data and AI architect, and have him carry that conversation forward. Because that's really his expertise.
Yeah, that's interesting. Sweet. Well, we are overtime. Thank you. Jamie, thank you. No, that was phenomenal. I appreciate it. I think people that had to leave have taken off. But bravo. Excellent presentation. Thank you to both of you for your awesome presentations. And I see one topic in the chat for next chapter meeting, which is about customer insights, which can be marketing or data. So the perfect person in mind. If you have any other ideas or feedback, just shoot me an email. I put my email in the chat. Otherwise, we'll see you guys in June.
Awesome.
Have a great spring, everyone.
Thanks.
Enjoy your
This
pizza.
is great.
Have a good one, guys. Take care.
I guess.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.